Mecca Beauty. If you're Australian and you shop any type of beauty, I'm sure you're familiar with Mecca. And I am sorry to more of my international followers, this video is a little bit more specific to the Australian market, but I hope it's interesting nonetheless. So we're going into a little bit of a conversation about the control or power that this particular retailer has, but a lot of the themes probably extend into other retailers as well. I just think Mecca kind of does things in a way that I haven't seen from any other place anywhere in the world. It's kind of like they're holding the Australian consumer by the throat, but we still love them for it. So it's this super twisted relationship. And I don't have a conclusion or really a strong opinion about it. I love Mecca. I shop there all the time. Like literally all of the time, but I think it's still good to have conversations about things you love. Ideally you want to see them stay in the market and sustain and not drop off, you know, because I love department stores, I love seeing retail and good merchandising, and I think Mecca does it better than most. But there's still some problems to discuss, so this intro has been kind of long. Anyway, I'll get straight into it. So just a bit of a proper introduction. Mecca is an Australian beauty retailer predominantly known for stocking high-end and luxury cosmetics. That includes fragrance and body care, skincare, makeup, really everything to do with beauty. I'm not sure if yearly revenue is publicly declared, so I've seen some different stats depending on the year, but it seems like Mecca revenue per year will be ballooning over $1 billion. So this is not a small company by any means, and it actually eclipses Sephora or Sephora Australia by a very wide margin. So Mecca is like the true ruler of the beauty industry in Oz. Mecca offers a curated range, and they showcase both heritage or existing sort of celebrated and well-known brands. And interestingly, and probably their signature kind of differentiation, is that they're also very well known to bring new brands into Australia, often indie brands. So you get this good blend of well-known products with some rising stars. As I said at the start, I'm a big fan of Mecca, shop there all the time. They have a rewards program. I'm on level 4, so that means I shop there way too much. And so with that in mind, this video is not intended to be overly negative, but it's relevant to discuss that Mecca has built their empire through control. And I just wanted to, see how you all feel about it, and get an impression on whether it's leaning problematic as we move forward, or if everybody is just okay with the status quo. So just to start with, I wanted to go over some or good things that Mecca does. They offer excellent product curation, and it means Australian customers often have access to brands and products that we might never have access to otherwise. It's possible that a lot of the brands that are stocked at Mecca would just never have bothered operating in Australia at all. We are a relevant market, but Australia is a smaller market, so it's probably not on the top of the list. But like with most things, Australia is very, the population of Oz is very focused on capital cities. So there tends to be a lot of engagement in the beauty sector because of that. So although the population is quite low, I would assume that probably the spend per capita is on the higher end, which also means that we often get brands launching in Australia before other larger markets because of how much flex Mecca has. Another point is that they have a best-in-class website. It's super engaging to browse through and just shop. There tends to be a lot of information presented, a lot of nice photography, great blog articles to read, plus their social media is also quite engaging and just beautiful to look at. And going into store, again, the merchandising is best in class. I've been to Sephora in the US, and also a bunch of the department stores and things over there, and Mecca is leagues above what I saw. So just visually going through the store is just a whole experience in itself, even if you're not buying anything. And the third point as a pro is actually the topic of this video, which is the exclusivity. In some ways, that's a good thing. It encourages rarity, the whole concept of limited edition, and having actually looking forward to buying products and knowing that you can't get them everywhere so readily. It does sort of improve brand value and also adds to the loyalty that people feel towards Mecca as a retailer. Now, just to go over a list of cons as well, I discussed some of the curation, but one of the downsides of the curation is that they don't always stock every product that a brand makes. So Australian customers often miss out on launches altogether just because Mecca decides not to stock it. There is a regulatory component where some products just can't be stocked here because the Australian regulations don't allow it. But there are definitely examples where we just don't get products because Mecca won't curate it. There are also sometimes just entire categories missing. So like Mecca, for example, stocks diptyque, but a lot of the diptyque products that are sold on their website aren't available at Mecca. So again, we can't order them. So it's just a bit frustrating sometimes to only have access to like 60% of a brand's range when you want something specific. Another con is that stock control can be a little bit unreliable. We're sometimes waiting for restocks constantly, or sometimes it will take weeks or months for a product to come back. And because we have limited options in terms of buying this product somewhere else, you're just in this loop of like waiting in perpetuity. The release schedule is also discretionary, so Mecca will very rarely follow the release structure of the brand itself. If a brand is launching a product in January, we might not get it until March, April, or October. It just sort of depends when Mecca feels like getting to it. Now, part of this could be related to logistics, but knowing how large of a retailer Mecca is, I am sure they have a really good idea of what products are coming from brands. So a lot of this stuff can be set in motion way in advance. And if we're a little bit late, big deal. But by the time a trend is over, that's when Mecca will start stocking a product. And it's like, then we have no interest in it. So it just puts everybody behind because we're never able to experience products at the same time as everybody else. There's also this whole conversation about company culture. And this was a topic, I think, during COVID era. There were just a lot of issues brought up with customer profiling and who actually Mecca is seeking to, be a Mecca client and who will get served, and who will experience good customer service in store and so on. There was also like an abundance of internal issues presented related to profiling, healthy working environment, parity, fairness, just like across the board of every department. From what I understand, Mecca overall has become much more corporate, so a lot of these processes have improved over the years. I'm not sure if the company culture is as much of an issue today as it was 5-6 years ago. So this is something that I can't really comment on because it's more of an internal thing. As somebody that shops at Mecca, I tend to focus on the website myself because I just like being able to browse through the entire product offering. Again, different stores have different curation, so not every store will stock every brand, and that's another issue, but I feel like that's similar to all retailers across the board. Online, I can just look at an Inky and just compare websites for pricing and so on, so I just feel like I have more control. But going in store, at least the last year or so, it has definitely it feels much more youth driven. Just a lot of the customers around are very young, even a lot of the employees there are very young. So the actual experience of going there, although the merchandising is stunning, I'm not sure that I don't feel necessarily comfortable going there to shop in person. But that's something that you just sort of experience differently based on where you go, which day of the week, who you're dealing with. There have definitely been times where I've gone to Mecca and have outstanding customer service. I feel like especially the perfume fragrance area, it's always such a nice place to go and shop. The rest of the store can be a little bit hectic. The makeup side is crazy. So again, that's just going to be a little bit individual. And just moving into probably the main topic of discussion that I think affects customers that is probably spoken about most, and that is this whole concept of Mecca exclusivity. Without mincing my words, they just seem to have this suffocating control. Exclusivity is not uncommon, it's just there's exclusivity in the standard sense, and then there's Mecca exclusivity, which to me appears a bit more like jail. I'm absolutely not privy to the internal operations of Mecca, so a lot of what I'm saying is just guessing or alleged. And I imagine different brands have different power in terms of how they can negotiate. If Mecca is planning to stock a really well-known brand, I'm sure that brand has a little bit more leeway versus an indie brand. And just to back it up a little bit, I guess what I mean by exclusivity is that Mecca will strike up a deal with a certain brand. They become the exclusive stockist in Australia, so you can't buy this brand at another retailer. Often you can't even buy the brand on another website, even on the brand's website. Especially for indie brands, they tend to prevent them from shipping to Australia entirely. So once they become a Mecca exclusive brand, it is very difficult to then source this product anywhere else. This also means that if the brand used to ship to Australia, they just stop shipping here once the brand enters through Mecca. Now, Mecca as a retailer doesn't just stock exclusive brands. They do have a blend or a mixture of different options. So there are some very well-known brands stocked there, like Estee Lauder, a lot of L'Oreal brands and so on. So there's a mixture of exclusivity with readily available brands. But I think exclusive brands is really Mecca's signature offering and why a lot of people shop there. When I have already posted about this topic on my Instagram, and when I posted that, I got some private DMs from people that wanted to remain anonymous. But essentially they told me that Mecca charges margins of upwards of 70% for brands to be able to be stocked at Mecca, which from what I understand is very much on the high end. So Mecca is taking a huge chunk of the cost of a product just to appear on their website and on their shelves. Of course, that's only alleged information. I have no actual idea. On the plus side, some of these brand owners did say that the benefit of Mecca charging so much is that they then handle PR and a lot of the marketing in Australia. So it means they kind of are able to wash their hands of operations to an extent. But just 70% is a lot. And then that doesn't leave a lot of wiggle room for other things. But again, maybe it doesn't matter because Australia is a smaller market. But just throwing out that little tidbit of information just to give you an idea of how much control Mecca can enforce on a brand. From what I understand, this is even more than Sephora US. On the topic of exclusivity, I don't necessarily have a problem with it across the board. It makes sense that retailers want to foster a specialized experience for customers and actually give a unique offering. Imagine if every single brand was sold at every single retailer, there'd be no differentiation. So retailers need to be able to create something unique. And a lot of the time, Mecca is going to the effort of actually approaching and importing these brands. So if they're doing a lot of the work of bringing in these products to the Australian market, then it stands to reason that they benefit from that. I think where my issue arises is that I totally understand with Mecca having exclusivity within Australia, but they also seem to be able to block product access internationally. So I already mentioned before that many brands Australians could buy from directly on their website and they'd ship it out here, but that would stop being an option once they were stocked in Mecca. But beyond actually blocking access to the brand directly, a lot of other retailers that would technically be competitors to Mecca also stop shipping these products to Australia. Now, this doesn't happen with every single brand. It's probably more on the really small brands that they're able to block access entirely. But enough where it's noticeable. The word monopoly comes around a lot, especially in discussions online. I don't think this is technically considered a monopoly because Mecca doesn't just stock exclusive brands. And of course, Australians have other retailers to shop from, and there are a lot of like products around. But with skincare and just beauty products in general, you kind of want the brand that you want or the product that you want. So just because you can buy a niacinamide serum from someone else, it doesn't mean that you want the other product. You want the brand that you want, if that makes sense. So although maybe legally it's not a monopoly, it certainly feels like one from a customer perspective. And this brings me to the next point of how the exclusivity ties in with pricing. The spirit of retail is that there should be a level of competition. Nobody wants any one company to have total control of a certain market, but it is difficult to foster a level of competition when Mecca really is able to shut down a lot of the avenues of competition from brands directly or through other retailers internationally. And this isn't just a question of product availability, but without an avenue of true and proper competition, Mecca has paramount control over which products get released in Australia, when they get released, how much stock is brought in, but also the actual price point. So they run everything from A to Z and even price changes. So it's all under their purview. And as I've alluded to in this video, on those Mecca exclusive brands, we just have no other option but to cop it. So we just have to play along with whatever Mecca decides. If you're familiar with department stores, especially like Exclusivity is not uncommon, but the difference with department stores is that they don't have like blanket rules for every single brand. Even with their exclusive brands, they will still respect the sort of pricing and discount rules of how that brand chooses to operate themselves. So what I mean by that is like a brand like Chanel, for instance, they never go on sale. So even if you go on their website or to their boutiques, you will never find their product on a discount, except for some like seasonal discounts, I think, on their ready-to-wear and stuff, but that's a different topic. So it therefore makes sense that department stores also won't discount Chanel, because that is just a pillar of the brand, is that they don't discount. But the problem is that a lot of other brands actually do discount very frequently. So if you go to a department store and they're running a sale, those brands that discount themselves will appear in site-wide sales at a department store. Just at Mecca, there's no such thing. So they will just price things universally, and despite the fact that a lot of these brands actually create their recommended retail price assuming they will have to discount, Mecca will never actually discount that product. And even beyond discounting, it even relates to special offers. So there's never like a gift with purchase. There's never get a free sample of a new release for a particular brand. Everything is just related to whatever Mecca wants to give, which is usually absolutely nothing. So just moving on to discounts specifically, it is well known that Mecca doesn't offer discounts. They do run like a Boxing Day sale, but that's basically just clearing out discontinued or old stock. There's never just a general sale. To be honest, I think that's actually okay. At least as like a general principle, retailers aren't required to discount. It is good for customers to have a level of confidence in pricing. So essentially, you know that the shelf price is meaningful and that is actually a true price. However, as I said just before, Mecca is enforcing this no discount rule on all brands. And obviously with the internet and social media, we as customers can see some of these brands going on sale all of the time at other retailers, mainly retailers overseas or on the brand website directly. You know, they're always doing like a buy one, get one free or some type of discount or sale. So Australians are constantly forced to pay the maximum retail price, and we never benefit from any bonuses. There are of course many brands that structure their pricing because they know they will offer discounts regularly, but we just never see those savings. I noted the example of Chanel. I'm totally on board with brands that don't want to discount. That does give brand value, and it gives me confidence that they are confident in their product offering. I think Apple is another good example. You know, their products will never go on sale unless it's a clearance or something. You know, that's what you want. You want customers to love your product and you want that pricing to match your client. I'm totally fine with that. But because Mecca does stock some brands that routinely go on sale, we're ultimately overpaying. And I can't imagine how Mecca isn't just profiting from these savings that they're not actually passing on to customers. These savings aren't for them. It's supposed to be for us. Now this leads me to another pricing topic, like essentially known as the real price. I think customers, consumers, everyone has become too reliant on sales, and an abundance of sales from every single retailer means that the price we see is never actually the real price. Everyone is just waiting for the next sale. To me, this does derail the value of brands. If a brand isn't really able to sell their product at their standard shelf price, then something is wrong. There's a disconnect with what the pricing is versus the customer they're targeting. So a lot of brands have pricing that is quite high, knowing they're going to discount at like 40 to 50%. I've spoken about this in like a random video about a lot of drugstore brands. Like we're seeing some of these drugstore serums retail for like $70 or $80. but then those serums are on sale for like 40 to 50%. So the real price is never the $70, it's the $40 that you can get it on sale. So I do find it somewhat commendable that Mecca does enforce strict pricing, because it means everybody knows that's the price that they're paying every day of the week. But it's also just disheartening to know that some of these brands intentionally structure pricing for discounts. So it's like, yes, it's good, we know the price is real in terms of Mecca's structure, but not real on the brand side, because the brand themselves discount so often. I don't even know if that made sense. I feel like I spoke around in circles a little bit, but I hope that was clear and you understand the point that I was trying to make. Let me know in the comments if something is unclear, or if you just have your own points to add. Now, moving on to this concept of vetting and curation. Mecca has historically been very good at vetting brands and creating like super curated options, and really well known for giving indie brands a go and a chance. A few years ago, it seemed like they shifted focus a little bit. So we just saw launches upon launches of heritage brands, and it just felt like Mecca really wasn't introducing any small brands at all. And a lot of these brands were just the same brands that were stocked at department stores like La Mer or like Estee Lauder and stuff. And I guess I never understood the point of shopping these brands directly at Mecca, because you get just much more of an offering from the brand website directly. My theory here is that they stock a lot of these other brands just so that Mecca itself doesn't appear like a monopoly, because this is the evidence. You know, they stock lots of things that are available everywhere, so it prevents them from being too monopolistic, if that's a word. So that's my theory. Again, I have no basis for it other than just observing Mecca, but it just doesn't really make sense to me for them to stock these brands that everybody can get everywhere, unless it's just to interrupt this notion of monopoly. Thankfully, within the last year or two, they have gone back to introducing more niche brands. But having said that, there have been some weird missteps. Like I've commented a lot on Mecca stocking a brand called Dr. Lara Devgan, which by all evidence seems to be a white label brand. And as I've discussed before, white labeling is basically where a brand is just purchasing generic formulations, putting their name on it. This particular brand is charging hundreds of dollars per SKU. So that's a level, like to me, that's a curation breakdown and is not the DNA of what Mecca is supposed to be. So if Mecca is enforcing this level of exclusivity, but then they're bringing in these brands that are just expensive for absolutely no reason, like they put no effort into the actual product development itself, then just the trust in the whole shopping process and experience is eroded. Like, I want to be able to trust Mecca and know that the products I'm buying there have a level of originality. I don't want to buy stock standard formulas for $400 a piece. Next topic is the Mecca rewards program. They call it Beauty Loop. And this forms part of Mecca's experience and how they foster loyalty. Now, I don't really think there's any really super great rewards program out there. Sephora, as an example, you know, you have to spend hundreds of dollars and you earn points to spend on little deluxe samples. So that's kind of a crappy rewards program too. But at least with Sephora's loyalty program, there's a level of choice, so you're able to select your own sample at a minimum. Mecca actually also curates and controls the rewards. So they create these boxes, they choose the products that are going in there. They're sort of different boxes for different spend levels that you reach, but ultimately you have no say in what you receive in the box. So I, for example, predominantly buy skincare, but a lot of the time the boxes come in with a bunch of makeup that I just will never use. And so I don't really understand how this actually signifies loyalty if I'm just being forced to take what they're choosing for me. That's not really relevant to my buying history at all. And of course, it's totally optional. They don't actually force you to claim the reward. But considering there's no discounts and they don't foster any other type of loyalty, you almost feel like you're missing out on the one thing Mecca gives to you as a customer. So you just naturally want to claim your Beauty Loop box just because it's the only thing they do. It's the only thing of value they do. On the plus side, they have made some positive changes to the loyalty program. Like, for example, on your birthday, they used to give just some sort of random Mecca brand free product. but now they're actually issuing a gift voucher, so that is actually money off, then you can choose to spend that on anything. So that's a great change. And they've also started to actually give full-size products. I think there's 3 or 4 throughout the year that they scatter alongside the standard Beauty Loop sample boxes. But even with the full-size products, they're still selecting the brand, they're still selecting the product categories. So for a retailer that is well known for curation, they really don't let you as a customer curate anything or make it relevant to your purchasing history. Now, I did want to draw a comparison to SpaceNK, which is one of the main sort of beauty retailers in the UK. I kind of suspect Mecca as a whole concept was probably birthed from SpaceNK as its main inspiration, and I kind of consider it a photocopy. I've never been to SpaceNK myself in person, but just looking at photos and things, the impression I get is that Mecca has a little bit of a larger presence in Australia in terms of footprint, but maybe that's just dependent on the store location and that sort of thing. Website offering and all of that seems pretty similar, but the reason I want to bring up SpaceNK specifically is that they are a very similar, they seem to have very similar operations to Mecca. SpaceNK does have exclusivity with brands. They do have a rewards program. They do have physical stores, a great website, nice merchandising, all that stuff. But the main difference is that SpaceNK offers all of these things, but they still have site-wide sales. They offer global shipping, and the rewards program is way more personalized. Like, you can select your own samples and everybody accumulates money off for every purchase. So clearly it is possible to maintain a level of exclusivity in curation and maintain customer loyalty while still offering some perks and benefits that Mecca just refuses to engage in. Plus, SpaceNK actually offers a level of like mid-tier brands that Mecca is lacking a lot. So Mecca leans very high-end luxury, but SpaceNK is at least developing a little bit more of a balanced pricing structure. So overall, SpaceNK has been able to maintain customer loyalty through incentives, not through this forced control. I also just wanted to chat a little bit about the brand perspective. I suspect most brands would be thrilled to actually be stocked at Mecca. As I've explained in this video, they are a commanding presence, but imagine if you're a brand selling in a retailer that is super high traffic, that has reliable customer service, beautiful website, beautiful stores. Mecca is known to take care of everything from social media promotion, in-store promotions, marketing emails. A brand pretty much just has to have the stock ready to go, and Mecca will take care of everything else. So if a brand chooses to sell in Australia, they don't have to worry about how they're shipping things here, creating independent operations. They just give everything to Mecca, and then Mecca handles everything else. And for a market that is a little bit smaller with less competition, I feel like that would be a dream for brands, because then Australia is just one of those things where their products just sell here kind of like clockwork in an automatic way. They have very little intervention and very little to do. And I think it just would be difficult to gain momentum in Australia as a market without having the support of a retailer like Mecca to get your, branding out there. Now, this has all been a conversation. As I said earlier, I still shop at Mecca. I love most things about it. So some of the feedback I get when I bring up this topic is along the lines of like, easy, just don't shop there if you don't want to, if you don't like it. But, as the theme of this video has suggested, because of Mecca's level of control on some exclusive brands, I literally can't shop somewhere else. So if I want that brand, my only option is to, buy it through Mecca, especially on some things like fragrance categories and so on. Beyond Mecca's control, there are also all these shipping logistics that essentially make it almost impossible to get fragrances here. So again, Mecca just has pricing control, shipping control, all of the control. And I don't think it's ever a consumer's responsibility to kind of apologize for wanting options. It is the responsibility of the market to ensure there's fair competition. And I don't know what the legality of it is, but when I say competition, I mean like for like. So if I'm talking about Summer Fridays or Glow Recipe, I mean Glow Recipe versus Glow Recipe at another place, at another retailer. I don't want a similar or like product. Competition should be the same thing. And this, of course, isn't a question of one or two brands. Mecca has exclusivity for a very wide listing of brands. So I guess just to wrap up this video and to offer a little bit of a takeaway, Mecca obviously creates a beautiful shopping experience both online and in store. And in many ways, I wish a lot of other retailers operated the way Mecca does. They do care about, presentation and offering an experience, and Mecca also truly values the brands they stock, and the way they value brands is then passed on to customers. It's not necessarily like a race to the lowest price. It really is about finding the right product fit. But ultimately, consumers are blocked from making individual choices in a lot of ways. Potentially, if Mecca stocked all products, if Mecca had a reasonable release schedule that matched international, if they had Australian exclusivity but didn't enforce global exclusivity, and maybe even if Mecca set their retail price a little bit lower to account for no discount, then really we'd have no reason to complain. You know that whole saying, like, have a cake, eat it too, or whatever it is? Well, Mecca has the cake, they eat all of the cake, but they also are in charge of all the ingredients going into the cake. Literally 360 is everything the way that Mecca wants it. Customers are just left with the crumbs. So I don't really have like a solution. I think the point of this video is just a little bit of venting frustration. I'm ultimately tired of missing new releases. I'm tired of being so late on releases. I'm tired of seeing some of these brands have these massive discounts that we can just never benefit from. It's frustrating. And although Mecca does have paramount control at the moment, they are growing. They do seem to be growing in sales constantly. There will likely be a point where this stalls. And it's like, I don't know why they want to get to a place where they start to build resentment in their customers, when if they just started to offer us a little bit, like just at least maybe start with gift with purchase, or give us a bit of a sale on selected brands just once a year even. Just show us some signs that you're interested in conveying not only experience but also value, then we would be happy in the long term, and we can all be Mecca loyal from like a place of positivity, not control. Anyway, that's the end of this little bit of like a rant video. I would love to hear your feedback on this topic. Again, this is very much just for discussion, just for conversation. I don't really have like 100% set opinion. It's all in flux and all developing. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.